On the investigation tells CNN that there is evidence that the hackers hacked into the system by stealing the computer password of a system administrator who effectively had total access to the to the company's network. There's also word that U.S. officials are very close to naming North Korea as the potential perpetrator of the cyber attack. Brian Stelter, host of CNN's Reliable Sources, joins us now to talk about the latest on this story. And Brian, George Clooney coming out very forcefully last night with a letter about what's going on within Hollywood on what amounts to a massive cyber terror attack against a U.S. business.
I think it's very revealing what he said. He was speaking at Deadline.com, and he said, this is just a silly comedy. The interview is just a silly comedy. But it says a whole lot about where we are right now. He said, we have a responsibility to stand up against this. Not just Sony, but all of us. And what he revealed is that he wrote many days ago this petition, this letter that he wanted lots of big Hollywood stars and executives to sign. This was before the threats against movie theaters, but nobody was willing to sign it. He says no other competing studios are willing to participate, no other big actors are willing to participate, revealing the tensions in Hollywood over this hacking. He's saying now everybody needs to come together and stand against these threats.
What's incredible is that it's not just the movie industry that's vulnerable. It's the banks, it's the retailers, it's everything that we've been seeing. It's the nation's entire critical infrastructure system could be hacked. So the fact that Hollywood is sort of caving to this, do you believe that ultimately we are going to see a release, or do you think at this point people are just so frightened until there's a U.S. response, they're effectively just going to follow along?
I think there's been so much backlash to the decision by Sony, but really by the theater owners not to release this movie. You know, it was originally the theater owners that said, we don't want to put this in our movie theaters. That led Sony to cancel the film. And there's been so much backlash to that from the George Clooneys and the Steve Carells of the world that now we are going to see folks band together and say this is enough. You know, the New York Times is reporting this morning that it's not just Sony that's being threatened by the hackers now. It's also some of their vendors, some of their partners that are revealed in these leaked emails. So I think there's probably a growing chorus saying we have to stand up against this in Hollywood. And because it's happening in Hollywood, we are all paying attention to it, even though, as you're saying, lots of other companies, lots of other institutions can be affected by this same kind of hacking.
And it's so interesting because the focus in the beginning was just on the sort of the gossipy emails about people behaving badly, when it should have been red alert. This company has now been attacked.
That's exactly what George Clooney is saying, that the press was distracted, and Hollywood was distracted by these gossipy emails. And then maybe, he's suggesting maybe that was part of the hacker's plan.
Well, exactly, because if you think about even critical infrastructure, if somebody were to attack critical infrastructure, first of all, you don't know what would happen, whether the lights would go off or the gas would stop flowing. And that's why when you look at the physical attack or the cyber attack that results in a physical attack, you have to look at both components of that to say, and I think is that one of the reasons with the theaters, were they concerned about a physical attack or were they concerned about a cyber attack within, whether it was shutting down the whole theater system?
There are a couple of layers to it. When the hackers on Tuesday invoked 9/11, there were concerns that moviegoers wouldn't go to the movie, that they wouldn't show up to the theaters for fear of a physical attack. So that's what we saw, that's what resulted in the cancellation of the movie in physical theaters. But they are also concerned about a digital hack, and that's why it's not coming out online. That's why Netflix or Comcast or others aren't going to be letting you buy and watch the movie online. There's concerns about that kind of hacking digitally as well. And I have to say, though, I do think this movie will somehow get out, some way, somehow, whether legally or illegally, whether it leaks or whether Sony wants to release it at some point. It's the kind of thing that can't be hidden forever.
Right. What's fascinating also, cybersecurity experts will tell you that everybody is in everybody else's business, in everybody else's system, but the great equalizer is the fact that, you know, if one country attacks the other country, they'll attack back. With North Korea, they're not tied into the financial system, so they have less to lose, and the fact that they're doing this on a movie that most people would have forgotten, if in fact they even saw it, now people are going to see it just to make a statement that, you know, we support U.S. companies. You cannot do this to the country.
Yeah, there's been a lot of sentiment about that. Stephen King, many others, and you know, not just, and I mentioned Stephen King because it's not just Hollywood, it's all sorts of folks that are involved in creativity, involved in the arts, involved in making media. This is something that crosses lines. So it's not just Hollywood, it's all sorts of media making. Gawker, the website Gawker, said to Sony yesterday, give us a copy of the movie. We want to screen it for a crowd in New York. We'll buy the popcorn. You know, I think that's not going to happen with Gawker, but we're going to see lots of offers like that. Lots of folks now want to rally around this movie to support freedom of expression.
And you raise a very good point. The FBI has been warning for years that, in fact, intellectual property, billions of dollars has been stolen by companies or by countries like China, taking intellectual property, not investing a penny, but reaping the rewards of all the sort of U.S. innovation that's been out there. They're not going to do that technically with movies, but the fact North Korea would gamble it all on this seems a little crazy now.
Yeah, we did see the National Security Council, the Obama administration, came out on Wednesday night and said, we take these issues very seriously. These issues of freedom of expression and creative license very seriously, and copyright as well.
Yeah, so, well, it's going to be interesting to watch. I think everybody really wants to see what the administration is going to do, because it's not Sony, and that's what everybody has to realize, that it's every single company and every single thing that is connected to the internet.
And the president has his press conference this afternoon. I am sure he'll be asked about North Korea.
No question. All right, Brian Stelter, thanks so much. We appreciate your